I'd like to call to order the November 18th, 2015 Carson City Airport Authority meeting. Beg pardon? We ahead of you? We have an echo. Ms. Warren, when you get a chance, would you call to order and determination of quorum?
Chairperson Hutter, Vice Chair Peterson,
Here.
Member Law,
Here.
Member Posick,
Here.
Member Shirk, Member Stotts,
Here.
Member White.
Here.
A quorum's present.
Thank you. Would everybody rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is approval of minutes of the past meeting. I have no discussion to add. Do any of the members have discussion on that point? All right. Do we need any public comment on approval of minutes? I didn't think so. Well, in that case, we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second motion?
All right. We have a motion and second. All approving, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Approved. Public comment. Members of the public who wish to address the Airport Authority may speak on agendized and non-agendized matters related to the airport. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person or topic. If your item requires extended discussion, please request the chairman to calendar the matter for a future Airport Authority meeting. Do we have any members of the public that would like to address us on those items? We have a hand up here. Let's let the gentleman go. Can you join us at the podium?
Yes, I need a little help.
That's okay. When you come forward, would you please state your name? And also, I think there's a form to sign up there to show that you signed in.
You want my X? Good evening. Thanks for giving me just a few moments of your time this evening. I spoke to Tim the other day at the airport, and he said I would have an opportunity to address you. As you can see, I'm blind, but I live on the south end of the, I guess it would be off Colorado. I live on Blue Haven. And I've noticed, since I've lived there a few years, there's been a change in the traffic pattern as far as flight pattern of the airplanes. And it appears to me that there's a number of airplanes that are starting to have difficulty rising above that altitude. I'm concerned. I have these visions in my mind of an airplane coming into my roof. I consider that a pretty high density area. I was informed last year that the elevation there of a plane being over our house was supposed to be about 2,000 foot. I talked to Tim last week about that, and he was kind enough to call me back and said, no, actually it's 1,000 foot over that area. And a number of my neighbors have said that they are concerned because of these planes being so low in many, many cases that they can see the numbers on the planes, which I don't know how far anybody can see, but that seems a bit low to me. In addition, a number of the neighbors in the neighborhood I live in seem to be concerned about it too. I don't know, I didn't see any, of course I didn't see them, but they're coming in tonight, so I'm not sure they're here if they have anything to say. But I really appreciate the opportunity to speak about this. When I first came down here, it appeared to me that most of those planes would fly out towards the south around Prison Hill. And that doesn't happen anymore. And I'm just wondering if there's shortcuts being taken or somebody's not paying attention to their altitude or what, but it's a little frightening to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before you go, I don't recall that you stated your name for the
Oh, I'm
record.
so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm Len Campbell, and I live on Blue Haven Lane in south part of Carson City.
Lynn, before you go, this is Don Peterson, the vice chair.
Oh, hi.
I'm over here to your right, but I understand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your sound's
That
coming
works.
that direction,
That's
you see.
okay, as long as you can't draw aim. Most of us up here are pilots, and the one thing I'd want to assure you is that we have two sincere concerns, and one is for the safety of everyone around us, around the airport, as well as our personal safety. There are different operational practices depending upon the performance of the aircraft, and it may be that you're encountering some lower performance aircraft. But I will mention there's recently, just very recently, been discussions with the FAA about the airport traffic pattern, and this is part of an ongoing effort to educate and re-educate the pilots at the airport. So the best I can say is we do appreciate your input. If you don't see improvements, or worse, if you see degradations in the behavior, do let Tim know. We are interested in being good neighbors as well as staying alive, so there's always a balance between those two things.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
And I'd also like to add that I've never met Tim, just talked to him on the
Right
phone.
here.
Where's he at?
Right here.
Hi, Tim. Nice.
Hi, Len.
You were very pleasant. Thank you for your help and input. Have a nice evening.
Thank you for your words, Mr. Campbell. Mr. Vaccaro, you're going to join us?
Yes, I'm going to join you.
Please state your name. I think you know the drill.
Okay, Jerry Vaccaro. And I think you probably know why I'm here. Been several occasions that I've addressed the board in reference to the hobby hangars. And none of you board members have been willing to put that on a agenda. And when you took your oath of office, you agreed to uphold all the laws of the Airport Authority in Carson City. And when the Airport Authority takes grant money from the FAA, it's so stipulated in that grant that you have to adhere to their policies, conditions, and laws. Your hobby hangars are not in compliance with the request of the FAA. So I, as an individual, was here to request all of the old board members, not your new member, to resign because you're not upholding those laws and those agreements with the FAA grant money. This has been an ongoing thing. I've been watching it for well over a year. I've spoken on previous occasions. It doesn't seem to get your attention. So I am currently asking that each of the old board members, because you're all cognizant of the illegal use of the hangars, so stipulates that there's got to be an aircraft with every hangar, and you're not in compliance. There's got to be at least a dozen hobby hangars. So I know you can't comment. I know you did make the exception to this gentleman, and that's fine, and I won't expect any comment from you, but I'm making the formal request that you people voluntarily resign and that we reorganize this board and get the airport to come in compliance of the money that you're accepting from the FAA. Okay?
Mr. Vaccaro, I will respond if you don't mind. Thank you for coming forward. I won't be resigning. I do believe that I am adhering to the oath of this office and will continue to do so. But the thing I would like to ask is, when you were here last time, you asked to be on the agenda, and I don't actually know the process to get on the agenda. So let me ask you now, would you like to have this subject on the agenda?
No, let me tell you what I've done since that last appearance. I met with the city manager, and I met with the district attorney for an hour and a half, and we've had this discussion. So they're taking it under their scope to investigate, because they had to agree that if what I was alleging was true, that it need to be addressed. So I don't wish to come on your agenda. I don't think that you people, you have an individual that's an elected city official, Mr. Shirk. He's very well aware of it. He could have put it on the agenda. You could have put it on the agenda. Mr. White, you could have put it. Nobody's done that. And it's an ongoing violation.
We've gone past our 3 minutes at this point. My point was, in fact, to offer you an opportunity for extended time via being on the agenda with a prepared presentation that we would, all of us, be given the opportunity to respond to, but you're saying you don't want to have that.
Okay. I think it's your responsibility as members of the Airport Authority, knowing what I've pointed out is a fact, and that you people should have put it, you know, at the end of the meeting, when you say any new agenda items, none of you ever do that. Never, none of you have ever wanted to.
Mr.
I don't know if
Ricard,
it's.
we've gone past your 3 minutes. If you don't wish to be on a future agenda, then I think we're done
No,
with
I'm
this
going to leave it to
particular-
the DA and
Okay.
the city manager,
That'll be
okay?
fine. Thank you for
All right,
coming
thank
forward.
you.
Is there any other public comment? Yellow shirt back here. Please tell us who you are. State your name, business. Thanks.
My name's Wes Abendroth. I'm a hangar owner and an aircraft owner. And I would like to address the board based on Mr. Vaccaro's comments. And I feel that since he's insistent upon us following protocol and rules, that if he has a legitimate complaint, he ought to agendize it. Now, I understand he's been asked twice, maybe 3 times to do this, and I don't feel that we have an obligation to listen to him on this high of a complaint if he is not willing to agendize it. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you for your input.
Okay.
Wes, would you please sign your name, please?
Oh, sure.
While he's signing, I think I saw another name.
Hand.
My name is Bill Hartman. I came forward during public comment last month and showed you a picture of the old airport sign and made the comment that it needed to be replaced. So I'm here tonight to show you what the new airport sign looks like. Go ahead and pass it around. Kind of critical, isn't it?
I've seen worse.
So Bill, is it good or bad?
Pardon?
I haven't seen the
Oh.
sign. Is it good or bad?
Oh, it looks good.
That's a beauty.
It's also up in its spot in the planter on the south apron.
That's great. Very nice.
Yes, keep going, Stan.
Good job. All right. Thanks, Bill.
Hope you like it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Any further public comment in this open session time? Going? Gone. Public hearings agendized. First is discussion and possible action to approve the construction of a storage room inside of Hangar H-23 and the Carson Executive Hangar Condo Association. Mr. B. Graber, I understand he's not in attendance. We are in receipt of some plans passed on by Mr. Clegg. And certainly we'll open this discussion, but I'll just state, since I have the mic right now, that my impression is that it would be a service to the airport at large, all of the members, and to Mr. Graber if we had a public discussion that included him. I personally don't see any objection to what's going on here, but if we affirm what he's doing or have debates with it in one sort or another, he ought to be here to comment on that. So I'm going to propose that we delay this to next month. Any comment on that?
I agree.
Any objections?
Next month or the next meeting?
Next meeting? Thank you for that. Well, we haven't made that decision yet. All right, so item number 1 is being moved to the next meeting. Item 2, discussion and possible action to approve a 3-year extension of the contract with Cinderlight Trucking for the removal of excess rock. Mr. Takis, would you like to bring us up to date on where we're at with this?
Sure. Back in 2011, we removed the hill that was, actually it might have been 2010, we removed the hill that was adjacent to the runway, kind of in the northeast quadrant of the airport property. And the material that was removed turned out to be a great deal more rock than dirt. And the rock was scattered and moved toward the area that's just east of our runway. Subsequent to that, Granite Construction did the reconstruction of 927 runway, and when we were all done, it looked like we had a rock field out there, which was a dangerous condition for airplanes landing. If you had an emergency or ran out of fuel or had to land short of the runway, you'd be landing in an area that was probably not very survivable. At the same time, we were told by several folks that the rock would have value outside. So we put it out to bid to sell the rock. We received 3 bids back in 2000, I guess it was late 2011, we did the RFP, and the authority awarded the bid to the high bidder, which was Cinderlight, in 2012, under a 4-year contract that ends in March of 2016. I think overall it's been a very good arrangement for both the airport and Cinderlight. Cinderlight has been selling the rock and paying us the per ton rate that was agreed to in the contract. And the item that's on here is a proposal to extend the contract for 3 more years on its existing terms. And so, and I know that Mr. Lehman's here from Cinderlight and can probably respond on behalf of Cinderlight.
Thank you. By way of background, very shortly after I accepted to serve another part term on the authority, I was approached by one of our airport family members out there, Eric Leach, who gave voice to me to a number of concerns he had about the situation off that end of the runway. And I did my best to take the notes and understand it, and I approached a variety of people around the airport and asked for clarification. I have since learned that some of the answers I got back then, that's some number of months ago, were incorrect. That there's been some new information coming. And Mr. Takis recently received a letter from Mr. Leach detailing these points in some detail. For me, there is enough concern that the airport should take a close look at what we have, what got us here, and where we want to go, to not simply renew the contract. There's a question of the value of that product, and I know going back, and at some point, Mr. Clegg, you may wish to speak to this. My understanding, and I was on the authority back when we were taking down the hill and all of that, but my memory of it is they were contracted to reclaim that land and reseed it and turn it back into a nice runoff area. And I promptly, when I got off the board, no longer paid much attention to it, and I came back and found what we see as a rock field and a dangerous landing area. So I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. And so I'll just say from my standpoint, I would like an opportunity to look at Mr. Leach's input that speaks to the value of the stuff that is out there, to the reclamation process that needs to happen, needs to be committed, the performance bonds for whoever's got the contract to do it, and that's going to take more than simply discussing tonight. Now, I'll certainly open the discussion to the authority here and see if anybody else has got a comment. Mr. Clegg, do you want to add any to the history or the present situation on this?
Well, it was Peavine Construction that took the hill down, and we knew that the runway was going to get reconstructed. So what we did was we put the reclamation of that area in the contract for the runway itself, because Granite used rock from that area, processed it to make the aggregate base course for the runway and taxiway alpha, as well as the asphalt concrete. So it's it's hard to recall exactly what happened. It's been some time ago, but there was some verbal agreement between Granite Construction, ourselves, and the airport manager at the time that the reclamation wasn't necessary because we started getting into this rock sales idea. In fact, we tried to get Granite to actually put a bid in for that. But the thought process was that if we're going to sell rock, why should we have them seed the whole area and then tear it up again? It just didn't make sense. So there was a trade-off between the value of doing the reclamation and doing additional work during the runway taxiway project. So, in fact, the reclamation is included with the Cinderlight agreement because that's where it makes sense to do that. Because if they're going to process the rock, it would just damage any reclamation that happened or occurred during the runway project. So in any case, we dovetailed it into the agreement with Cinderlight. Well, in the RFQ that we put out, that had to be included in their bid, and it was. So they have a performance bond, I believe, and they also have a requirement to clean that area up when they're finished.
Do you know or can estimate with some confidence how much we've received for the sale of that rock so far?
I'd have to leave that up to Tim. He's the one who collects the receipts.
Tim?
Since the contract began, including this month, we've received nearly $160,000 in sales.
Mr. Clegg, can you estimate, let's say we reach a point in time, which I think needs better definition, we finished the rock sales, we've had removed what we want removed, and now we are going to want a safe runoff area, not a rocky ditch that would destroy airplanes, and grass seeding. That's, as you say, was part of the RFQ. Can you estimate what it would cost to have that done at the end of the rock sales? Just a wild best guess?
Right now, I couldn't give you that number. I could do some research and let you know.
Could you guess how many digits it would be?
No, digits?
Yeah.
Oh, you know, probably in the range of $10,000, maybe more. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
I mean, it depends on what we're asking for that to be. I mean, the problem is if you spray hydro seed out there, that's pretty expensive stuff, but it doesn't grow on rock. And that's basically what's out there. So that's really not a feasible alternative. There's areas that would grow, but generally it's all rock. So it's not going to take root. So the other alternative would be to spray dust palliative. But then if it's bare rock, there's no dust, so that's a debatable thing. You know, what is it that is really necessary out there?
You got a question?
The question I have is if since the original contract was put into effect, if we've managed to come up with $160,000 so far, based on a comparison of how much rock has been removed and how much remains, is there an estimate of how much additional income will be generated over the next 3-year period that may help pay for that?
I have not come up with that estimate. Maybe they've mentioned that
Maybe Cinderlight can answer that question. I don't really know.
What I propose to, come on up. We'll open up the conversation in a minute. What I would like to propose to do is I'd like to share, after we get done with the meeting, Eric Leach's letter with you. But what I take from it is that we don't seem to have a formal stated plan for that end of the runway. We're selling rock, and then someday it's going to be done, and then when that's done, someday we're going to make it pretty again. And in the environment we work in, I'm uncomfortable that that addresses all we should be addressing. If we create a big ditch out there and airplanes fall in it, we shouldn't have dug the big ditch, that kind of a thing. And again, I encourage any other members to speak to this, but what I would like to ask for is that you come forward at the next meeting or soon thereafter and give us a presentation on, if we were starting with a clean sheet right now, we all arrived, we got a new airport here, what do we want to do with that end of the runway? Ignoring past agreements or anything else. You just take a look at it. What should it look like at the end of this project? What should we want it to look like? And put as the income from the rock a secondary issue. It's good. We may well do it. It may fit the plan that we end up deciding on, but I'd like you to lead the discussion. What should that plan look like? Why don't you tell us your name and sign in?
Good evening, Greg Lehman from Cinderlight. Just listening to the comment, I guess I could just back up. When we started, the bid had come out. Several of the contractors in the area had talked about, putting in bids on that rock. There was this presumption that the rock was valued at high numbers. Everybody, had dreams that it was worth, millions. At the end of the day, you had three bids. You had one bid that they offered you $0. You had one bid, they offered you 80 cents a ton, and they offered to take out 20,000 ton. Then you had our bid, where we offered to take out over 100,000 ton at $1.52 a ton. Nobody else showed up, nobody else gave a bid. Granite, RHB, on and on and on, knew about that rock, knew about the bid. So there was no value. We came in, and it was a mess. There had been contractors in before who had dug your ditches that you're talking about, had left holes, had no reclamation plan, anything else. We came in, we had Robinson Engineering do an engineering plan. There's a plan there on how the grade's gonna look when it's finished. It is all rock. We didn't even have, if you went out there when we started, we didn't even have room to turn a truck around. Okay, so we've spent a lot of time breaking that rock down, getting it to where it's sellable, sizable, and the one thing that we provided that no other bidder could provide is we're a material distributor. We sell to homeowners, we sell to contractors, we sell to landscapers, Q&D, granted, SNC, on and on and on. We're TRPA approved. We go through the noxious weed program with the Department of Agriculture. So there's been a lot of avenues to try to move that rock, and that's why we've been successful in doing it. And speaking to your reclamation now, when we came up with a bond amount, we've got two other bonds. We've had bonds with the Forest Service and two with BLM. Those bonds are based on Davis-Bacon wages. Their costs are pulled out of the handbook. They have a cost handbook of what equipment will cost to finish it. So we took the acreage on site there that needed to be reclaimed. We matched it up to some of our BLM bonds, and that's how we came up with the performance bond. So we've reclaimed a few places already. They've been successful. It's been seeded. What you have there is not going to be reclaimable because it is a rock hill. It has to be developed. It has to, the mess has to be cleaned up. Every contractor that was in there did it quick and dirty as they can and threw the rock over the edge. So we've had to maneuver through that. With that being said, there is a lot of rock in there, but there's a lot of dirt. So what we're doing as we've gone is we're screening out the rock and then saving the dirt. That way when the end project comes, we have something to spread over what's left so that we have the 3-to-1 slope left. On top of that, there's been a couple other projects on site on the airport that we've brought material down there from other contractors, and when we've got it stored there, that way when we finish, we have a clean look of what that should look like with a 3-to-1 slope. Now, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the engineered plan, but the plan shows exactly where we're going to excavate, where we're going to come around. And I think it showed there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000 ton, Tim, of rock and obviously of material. We've taken out a little over 100,000 right now. Now you got to take out that there's a fair amount of dirt in there. That dirt's unsellable. You know, it has a plasticity index that a lot of contractors, it won't meet any type of spec. But for the reclamation and the smoothing and having a surface that's left that doesn't look like a rock pile, it's perfect. So we're storing that, going to put it on top, and that $15,000 performance bond should be somewhere in the neighborhood of what it's going to take to clean that up. Now, if you're asking, well, what's it going to take if somebody comes in today? Well, you've got a mess today. You know, I mean, it's a lot better mess than what it was, but now you've got a plan that somebody's working at so that as we develop, the cost to rehabilitate that can be done within that. But if you just shut down, then it's like, well, we just throw all the dirt up there, cover the rock up, and then you put out another contract or something, and then it's a nightmare again because all that's got to be redug. So, you know, when Tim approached us about a 3-year extension, you know, obviously we're working to what we've taken out, looking at how we're going to reclamate, and it's like, well, it makes sense to go ahead with the extension because instead of us throwing the dirt on top now, knowing that we're, you know, within the time frame of ending, that we continue to bid jobs, get things that, you know, the economy's turning again, people are wanting rock, and so here we are, that we can continue to develop that, continue to work towards a plan to having something that you guys want to see at the end. So it's, you know, I think that it's a good thing for us, and I think it's a good thing for you guys. I don't think it's like we're taking all the win or you guys are taking all the win. It's a cooperative thing, and you know, we've worked with Tim the last 3.5 years and Steve and Jim, and it's been a good working relationship. You know, we're down there and we've got you know, the equipment down there, the water trucks down there. We talk with the residents in the area, make sure that, you know, we're doing what we're supposed to do. So I honestly think the route that you would really want to pursue is to continue the operation, continue the extension.
Mr. Beeman, let me clarify. I've heard not a single negative word about the relationship with Centerlight.
Yeah.
My comments really relate to before you got the contract. You had nothing to do with. You came
Right.
in and apparently you've done a fine job and done what you were asked to do and what you bid to do, and that's fine. As you said, the economy's turning around. When the bids were asked for and received some number of years ago, not a lot of building going on. The rock may well be worth a little more, a lot more. Don't know. But we're a public entity, and we actually do have to pay attention to that. And another thing that nobody said that we did when that original contract was put in was to get an outside appraisal on it. And at this point, the public can have all the opinions they want. They don't mean anything. But if we go out and get one or more appraisals that say, well, yeah, the Centerlight deal's about in the ballpark, looks good, then we have the confidence that we've done our job as public servants to carry forward. If they come in and say, no, I'll give you the phone number of 6 guys that'll pay triple, we have to listen to that as well. So this is in no way a complaint about Centerlight's past performance. It really is, and you've touched on some of what I'm talking about. I was here when the original runway thing was going on, and what I had in my mind was going to end up is we'd be done, we'd have a nice runway, 3-to-1 slope, clean grass, the occasional wildflower. That's not what we have today. Something changed, and right. I think Mr. Clegg and Mr. Takis were right. The new idea of selling rock kind of got in the way. But when you do runways and hills and all of that, there's a fairly finely structured formal plan. Here's the beginning, here's the end, here's how it's going to look. And then we kind of had this new ad hoc idea, but there's no real plan for it. And that's what I'm asking for, is guidance of what's it going to look like. What would we tell Mr. Lehman today, if he were a brand new contractor, that we would like him to do that's going to be in the contract? Not just word of mouth that perhaps you and the last manager had, but like we had with P-Vine and the rest of the guys, a plan that guides all of our actions. And that's really all I'm asking for. I think this contract goes through March of next year.
I think that's correct, March of 2016.
Okay. This would be an ongoing process. There's an agenda item to not have December's meeting, so we'll say at the next meeting, I'd like to ask that we pick this up again with some of this input, with an idea of where we're going, and that we've also looked and sought some outside input on what is the market today, not 3 years ago, for the rock, and what would be the cost to reclaim that area back to the condition that we want. Is that something that needs clarification, or do you get that?
I think maybe offline I'll get some clarification from you, because I thought that we did that when we gave this exhibit to Cinderlight.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much agreed upon what was going to be done. And it's reflected in their contract, so.
All right. I would like to get a copy then of that contract to refer to. What I have here is just verbiage, no pictures, that was sent to me as a new member on the board. So I would need to look at the full contract that has the material you have. I haven't received that.
There was a grading plan that was an exhibit to the contract, and I think when I distributed my briefing memo, I did not include the grading plan. I apologize.
Is there any comment from the board members on simply delaying this till the next meeting, which we're assuming at this point would probably be January, with additional input on current market conditions for rock, and to all of us have a good look at that engineering plan, so we can come back in either ready to renew in January or to put forward a new RFP, whichever seems to come from the discussions at that time.
And I can tell you the going rate right now is roughly, with BLM, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 cents a ton. Private owners, 75 cents a ton to $1 a ton. So it's a good deal. And that information is public. You can look up.
Thank you very much. Any comment from the board on delaying it to the next meeting?
I do.
Go ahead. Mr. White.
As a private citizen, I attended those rock meetings as well, an entire series of them, and it was grueling and uncomfortable at many points during that time. And if in fact there is grievous evidence that this shouldn't go forward, it should have been brought forward before tonight so that we could deliberate it. I'm perfectly comfortable with moving forward tonight.
Any other members?
Yeah, I'm curious. Is the issue is it mainly Mr. Leach's comments about the value of the rock, or is there something more important than that? I get the impression that it's just a question of the value of the rock.
Well, Steve has the letter, and I have a copy. It's 10 or 12 or 14 points, which would be briefed by Eric Standard. It's the value, it's the current aircraft safety, future aircraft safety, environmental concerns, the cost of reclamation. So there's a number of points. And this is, I'll call it hearsay, my understanding when I met with Eric some number of months ago is that he did put forward this information when this whole process was coming together, but somehow it didn't get connected to the process. I wasn't there. I can't speak to that. But if we have a member of the public who says he put it forward and it, in his terms, got swept under the rug, he's put it forward again in writing, it's easy to read. I'm happy to distribute. Just got it yesterday, so it's new. We haven't distributed it. It just seemed worth giving it one meeting cycle's worth of consideration.
Mr. Chairman, you should also take public comment at some point.
Any other board members on this? Do we have any public comment on this?
I didn't get to see the report from the individual you're talking about, but as far as like environmental permits, we get an EPA permit. We have an EPA permit out there now, so those permits are in place. So just to clarify that.
Again, I've had zero negative comments on Cinderlight's performance. None of my input here is about that.
No, I understand.
It's really just at this moment in time, we either renew or we go to a new RFP. We have a new proposal that's well considered in writing, and I'm simply suggesting to the authority that we give it this one cycle of consideration. All of you gentlemen will be given the notice, the letter, and see what you think about it. and Steve, you might tell me, and you as well, it's
I was going
public.
to ask if it's okay, and then maybe we should just check with Mr. Leach, because I was unable to tell from the email what distribution he was expecting when he sent it to me. I did talk to him and tried to answer a bunch of his concerns, but he did raise concerns about how do we know that $1.52 a ton is still a fair price? And certainly not by looking at people like me. I don't know the value of rock. You know, Greg knows these things like I don't. And he also asked a bunch of other questions along the lines that you've summarized, which are how is safety of aviation played in? Which there haven't been any problems, but I think he's thinking at some point we want to have a smooth area, and when is that going to happen? So, but I will get you a copy as well, Greg.
I think, you know, the fear that for a lot of these contractors to come in and do what you're going to want to do and get more value, they're probably going to be wanting to put a crushing spread out there. And I really, really know that that's not what you want at the end of that runway. You will have a nightmare. If you were by when they crushed the last time, you tell for yourself what you saw. So that's where they're going to see value. With oil prices low right now, they're not going to see it as value, because that, you know, that's what those big players are looking at, and that's what you'd be faced with.
Mr. Lehman, there's, at this point in time, to my knowledge, no other contractor being in conversations on this. Let me ask you a question. Is it much of an imposition to ask for another meeting cycle to revisit this with you? We do value our relationship with Cinderlight. It's been a good one. Yeah. Would it be a problem for you to pick this up in January with the hope that we just go forward, or if not, we all have real reasons why something needs to change?
That's not a problem on our end, but you know, if there's any answers that you wanted tonight, I'm happy to give them to you if I know them. So.
Well, as I said, we only received the notice yesterday, and I have not had a chance to completely digest it. We want to circulate it to the members. Do we need to vote on postponing this, or I just gavel it down to the next?
You can just move it to the next
Okay, well, I'm going to move it to the next meeting.
I have one more question.
Go right ahead, Mr. White.
It's been a while since I actually read that contract. Was there a renewal clause in the contract?
There isn't a clause that says it can be renewed for a certain number of years or anything like that, but there is a provision that says that it can be amended by a document in writing so long as it's agreed to by all the parties. And I've run that past the DA's office. We both think that that is sufficient legal authority for you to extend the contract. However, if you were going to come back to Cinderlight and say, yeah, but we want the number to be $1.75 or something, if you're going to start changing terms, then the safe road is to put it back out to bid, which, as Greg explained, that has some of its own issues, because somebody else would be kind of picking this up midstream, and I'm not sure how that would play out. But that's the legal answer to your question.
Member Posick.
Yeah, I do have a question. Is 3 years enough time for you to finish this project, or is that just a guesstimate?
Well, there's potentially more material there than 3 years, but wherever we come at the end, the slopes can be met at that point because of all the, you know, material that we're preparing now for that final reclamation. So, you know, on the map that you had there, there's a distinct line that we want to get to, but if you fall 50 feet short of that line, it's still reclamated over and sloped from that point, you know, if that's what you like to do. And I don't know, potentially it could be done. You know, the phone rings every day. Some days they say they want a lot and they don't get any, and some days they say they don't need any and they just keep sending trucks. So the hope is it'll all be done.
Mr. Lehman, thank you very much. Okay. My hope would be that we wrap it up in January and that we've answered our questions, Mr. Leach's questions, and that we end up with this off the table and happy for everybody.
And I will leave you with this. If any board member would like, you know, me or my father to take you out there to see what we're doing, how we're operating, be more than happy to give you a tour of the facility and what we're doing and out there and how we're operating and how we manage things. So
thank you very much. We're moving that to whatever we decide is the next meeting at this point. Next agenda item,
I think you finished asking for public comment.
we did.
Yeah, you had asked for a public comment, but Greg was the only person who came up. I'm understanding that Bill has additional
Come
public
right ahead,
comment.
Bill. Thank you.
Bill Hartman. Mr. White referred to the really lengthy conversations that went on when this was initially addressed. And I was present for those also. And they were very, very laborious. And I think that the solution that was arrived at finally is really the best. And it is my recommendation to do what Mr. White says and to go ahead and accept the extension tonight. One of the things that was thrown out earlier as a way of getting more money for the rock, and I think would probably still apply today, had really the airport manager involved with sorting rock, because some rock is more valuable than other rock. And if we at the airport level did that, then we could say, okay, we can get more for this rock and sell it, less for this rock, but that's not the airport manager's job. He's not a rock sorter or salesman. And that was, that conclusion was reached in the prior discussions. So Cinderlight does sort and sell rock, and that's one of the things they get paid for. And I think they've offered, really a fair price. And my recommendation is to go with Mr. White's recommendation and get this thing resolved and move on, instead of getting all bogged down in stuff that really was all sorted out, 3.5, 4 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hartman. I am moving it to the next meeting, which...
Wait a minute. Don't we have to have a vote on this?
No.
No, the chairman can postpone it to the next meeting. I mean, unless there was a motion made to go ahead and go forward with it.
Okay, then that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, well.
Mr. Prosick?
Okay, this is the one way to find out whether this is going to be a legal entity or not, is if it gets voted down, then we'll deal with it. I move we approve the 3-year extension of the contract with Cinderlight for the removal of excess rock.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I'm a nay, so it sounds to me like the vote's 4-1, and it's approved. You got your contract. All right, number 3, discussion and possible action to approve the lowest bidder to inspect the airport terminal building for the environmental hazards, generate a report to the authority, and make recommendations. Mr. Rowe, this is yours.
As we discussed, or I discussed at the October meeting, we've had for some time problems with mold in the terminal. I was instructed to seek out bids, and I did receive 3. One was for $2,500, and because I don't know any better, I just thought that was the going rate. Then I received one for $745 from a company called Environmental Inspection and Control Services, otherwise EICS, out of Reno. And I actually just received one today for $908, so it's still a bit higher. But this is to go in, inspect the building for hazardous materials, mostly mold, but they are part of the agreement here, or the proposal, is to also inspect for asbestos. Just a follow-up, the old kitchen area of the terminal, we have black mold there, and as much as Gary has tried to reseal the roof, it leaked so badly that finally we pulled out of that room and blocked it off because of the mold. So we've had to concentrate his shop area into one room on the western side of the terminal. This is a huge problem. The roof is 65 years old, as is the building. It is a cinder block building, and you know, if we were to replace a roof, we're looking at $50,000 just to replace the roof. It's just not cost effective. It's not cost effective to bring it up to code. I don't know what to do about it, but the one thing that I would like to do is at least find out where we're at with the hazardous materials, see if we have mold, if it is a problem, and then bring a report to the airport authority and bring it to the authority in January if that's the next meeting. So this is what I would recommend to the authority, is to approve EICS to conduct an inspection of the terminal, provide a report, and part of this report is to do a scope of work, which I don't think is going to be feasible, but at least we'll know where we stand once this inspection is complete, and that report will be presented at the next meeting of the airport authority.
Thank you. Member comment?
Yeah, I do. If this report comes back absolutely negative, that mean we got to close the building down as of that date? Or where do we go?
I don't have that answer right now because I have tentatively sought out alternatives. There's not a lot, but we may have to rent space with one of the FBOs. But I have not gone in depth in that. We've also looked at temporary buildings, office buildings, like trailers, construction type trailers to come in. But I don't want to go there just yet until I know exactly where we stand. And I will not make that move without first seeking airport authority approval to do so. If we have to move out, we will temporarily set up an office someplace, and we'll just deal with the rest of it. But right now, I just want to find out where we're at, what we've got. It may not be a problem. I don't know. So that's what we want to do, is find the answers.
Anyone else?
Yeah, no, I know that black mold, I guess, is bad for you, but just how bad is it? Is black mold something that is going to endanger people's lives? Or is it make you sneeze? Or just what exactly does this stuff do to you?
I was down visiting with Tim one day, and he showed me that portion of the building. As far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't put anybody in that environment. My granddaughter went away to college, got a mold infection, and lost 30 pounds in 6 weeks. She didn't have the 30 pounds to lose. It took 2 different doctors to diagnose what was wrong with her, and it was caused by her roommates refusing to leave the doors open, and there was black mold growing in the closets. I think an environmental engineer is the only one that can answer that question for us.
What I do know about black mold spores is that it is a carcinogen, and that's really all I know. 30 pounds in 6 weeks, I've been trying to do that for a long time now.
Any comment from the public? Seeing none, we come back to the board. If anybody has a motion, we'll entertain it.
I guess I'm getting good at it tonight. I move we approve the engagement of EICS of Reno to inspect the terminal building for environmental hazards and generate a report to the authority and make recommendations not to exceed the amount of, I think it's $745.
We have a motion. We have a motion and second. And correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, we don't need further comment at this point after motion and second?
That's correct. At that point, you ask for any other comment from the members of the authority,
Right.
and then proceed to a vote.
Any other comment from the authority? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Unanimous, it passes. Go get your assessment. Thank you, Tim. Item number 3B. Discussion and possible action to cancel the Airport Authority meeting for December 16th due to Christmas holidays. Member comment?
I would like to just, because I got on there, I'm sorry the secretary fell down on the job on this. But it has been historically a problem getting a quorum together in December. Last year, we did have a quorum, however, we only had one item on the agenda, and that was an approval of the ACIP, which we would have this December because we have a meeting with the FAA in early December. However, that can wait until January. So,
I'll just note that my holiday wouldn't begin until the 20th when my grandson gets out of school. I'm available if the quorum is the issue. I have no idea what the agenda items be. We've got a couple of, one delay here at this point, plus any new ones. So any other comment on whether they would like to have the meeting or to postpone it? You're saying postpone, but it's not a vote yet. Anybody else?
In your court, Steve.
Well, we're public servants here. We volunteered. Business does arise from time to time. We don't always know what it is. It'd be nice to get Mr. Graber out of the way, so in the absence of a motion to postpone it, we would leave it on the agenda. Mr. White?
I think in regards to Mr. Graber, did we not specifically state postpone it to January?
No, the
Next meeting.
We did say next meeting? Okay.
Okay, since I'm doing this, let's finish it. I move we cancel the December 16th meeting of the Airport Authority.
Do we have a second? Crickets.
We don't have a second, we don't have a motion.
December 16th, we'll be meeting again. Thank you, though, Steve. Appreciate it. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I would just note that if you get near the December 16th meeting and you find you don't have a quorum, you can still cancel the meeting. We've had to do that before, not necessarily December, but at other times. And so, if there truly is a problem getting a quorum together, that's always something that you can remedy later.
Sure, it's a courtesy, everyone, not to show up and find out you got to go home. So we'll all stay in touch as the time gets closer if there's a change in holiday plans. G, Airport Engineers Report.
Okay, well, I emailed and handed out the engineer's report, and the schedule for the design of the north apron is provided. We're on track. It should be able to easily meet this schedule. The NATAC meeting was held November 10th. That is the Nevada Airport's Technical Advisory Committee. And what they do is they make recommendations to NDOT Aviation, who in turn makes recommendations to the NDOT director. And what the meeting was all about is that there is $100,000, actually more than that because of license plate sales. There's $127,900 available in the Fund for Aviation that Nevada distributes. So the meeting was just to confirm the recommendations that NDOT Aviation came up with, and what it turns out to be is that every eligible airport, and the criteria is listed in the narrative. Anyway, each of the 13 eligible airports received 29.27% contribution toward their match for their individual FAA grants. And so in the case of Carson City, that equates to $2,927. Now, it's not official until it actually goes to the NDOT director, but I believe that that's being done now. And then the FAA has sent out an email given target deadlines that they like to see, and this time of year is when these target deadlines really start arising. The ACIP meetings are held November, December. We're going to have ours on December 2nd, I believe, yeah. And when we go to that meeting with the FAA, they'll confirm that they're going to fund a certain amount, but I've already talked to the FAA, and the tentative decision is that they're going to fund the entire North Apron for 2016. So that's really good news, because the cost of phasing it over a couple of years wouldn't be dramatic, but it just wouldn't be cost effective, and logistically to get around that apron without tying the two phases together in one construction season just doesn't really make sense. So fortunately, the FAA saw it that way themselves and have verbally committed to funding the entire construction next summer. But that remains to be seen when the grants actually come out, whether we can get it all done. Anyway, any questions on what I handed out?
Yeah, just a quickie. I see this 127,900. Is that including the 100,000 that was
Yes.
given away this year? Okay.
Yes, it is. And then next year, there'll be another 100,000.
So if nobody claims this money, then we can apply for more next year?
Well, this year, there's 127,900 that's available. Next year, there'll be another $100,000 put into the fund for aviation, and whatever license plate sales or renewals occur. And I don't know if you're familiar with the license plates that I'm referring to, but
Yeah.
and it's specific for this fund for aviation.
I guess what I asked is if we get this bid next year for the FAA, can we ask for another percentage of this?
Oh,
fund?
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I just don't want it to get away.
Oh, don't worry. Now, the only problem is, it'll help, just like this one did, but it doesn't really satisfy your entire match. That's the problem. But yes, we will be applying for money from this fund next year.
Any other questions for the engineer? Mr. Clegg. Thank you, Mr. Clegg. Airport Manager's Report, Mr. Rowe.
On October 28th, we had an FAA Fast Team Forum at El Aero. A lot of things were discussed, but primarily a possible new traffic pattern that we will bring to the authority probably will be ready in January. I've sent out an attachment to my briefing the other day, and you'll see that what we're going to be going through. Now, there's some tweaking that needs to be done with this, and I'm also going to be asking for comments from tenants and pilots on the airport to make sure that we're all on the same page. That's something we can bring to the authority. So you can expect that in January. As everyone knows, we had an acid fire at PCC. That's a building between Clickbon and Ted Melsheimer's building. The fire department dumped about half a million gallons of water in the fire, and a lot of that flowed onto the airport drainage ditch. We utilized our tractor, and plus the Public Works folks brought in their front loaders to create some dams to control the water from going into the storm drain, because they simply didn't know what they had. The fire department believes that the nature of the fire, which was acid, I don't know what type, was consumed in the fire, but they are running tests, cleaning up, and at some point, very soon, hopefully, Public Works will bring their equipment in, clean up the dams that they created, and regrade the ditch. And so we're hopeful that that happens very soon, but we don't believe we have a problem of contamination, according to the fire department. And that's all I have, unless there are any questions.
Member White?
In regards to the prospect of having contamination out there and the city spending money, moving equipment and dirt around, is it appropriate to get involved with PCC's insurance company and file a claim to cover those costs?
To the extent that we have damages or expenses, yeah, that makes sense. We should file a claim. My guess is we probably have at least a year to file that claim, and my advice would be find out what our costs and damages are before we initiate that process.
We don't have to put them on notice at all that we're looking at filing a claim?
Not that we're looking at it. When we have known damages, maybe that would be a good time to let them know something's coming. But at this point, no. It would be different if it was our insurer and we had some kind of accident. Then we would want to put them on notice right away because of the potential for a claim. But when we're the outside party making the claim, we don't do that until we know we have a claim.
So with it being on airport property, with the city generally doing the work, and you said the fire department is looking for contamination apparently, even though it's on our side of the fence, would it be us doing that or would it be the city that would be doing that?
The airport property is owned by the city, not by the airport. So if it's a damage to the property, it would probably be the city. But we want to look at it because, you know, our contract with the city is to manage that property. So if it causes us damages in managing the property, if there are things that we have to do to properly manage that property, we could still have damages even though the property is owned by the city. But that's definitely something that Tim should probably work in close concert with Carson City's risk management group to find out, hey, how are we going to handle this and what damages do we have? I don't know, does the fire department send out bills when they put out fires? I just don't know.
They send out a bill when they haul you in an ambulance.
Well, the ambulance services I'm very much aware of, and those go through medical insurance and get recovered, but it wouldn't surprise me if the provision of fire services result in a bill to somebody. I mean, I just don't know the answer to it.
Mr. Rowe, it sounds like at the very least you need to have, if you don't already have started, a file on this event. It's harder to go find invoices 9 months later than just to drop them in when they come in. And to ask the people you've interacted with, that would be, of course, the fire department, any environmental people, are there any charges to us, to the city? And if so, they need to be funneled through you, and then you can accumulate these. At some point, you'll be able to tell us we have damages because there's bills involved, or we just got some dirt out there that has been tested clean. So if you'd let us know on an ongoing basis how that's turning out.
I will communicate that, and I have been in contact with Justin Tierney with Public Works, and he has assured me that at some point, once the fire department clears the area, that they will be out there with their equipment to regrade the ditches, clean things up, and sweep the pavement, because a lot of dirt got tracked over our taxiway Charlie, and also on Ted Melsheimer's ramp. So they're going to be cleaning up both. But I will keep track of any damages, invoices, and possible charges.
So until that area is cleaned, are we restricting access to it? So if it is contaminated, people aren't tracking it around the hangars and around the airport?
Right at this point in time, all we have is some dried patches of dirt. They're going to bring a sweeper in, but we're not going to restrict the taxiway access. So.
There really shouldn't be foot traffic or vehicle traffic in the dirt in that area. that's really an area that's kind of remote from any of the hangars or anything like that.
Tim mentioned there was debris across the pavement.
Yeah, but it's on the side closest to the ditch. There's not very much of it. It's just when they bring their equipment into grade, they'll probably be tracking more dirt with the type of tires that they use, but they are going to sweep it also. So.
Anything else for Mr. Rowe?
Yeah, one question. Any update on cricket?
Have not received any word of any letter, either formal or informal, from Cricket or from ARQ Wireless. So I'm not sure just what's going on. They're paying their bill on time, and so I don't see that this is going to go away anytime soon.
No further questions? Legal counsel, please.
The only thing I put in my briefing was that I also went to that traffic pattern presentation, and I know I sat really close to Steve Posick. He was there, and some of the rest of you guys might have been there too. But the one thing is, I talked to the guys who did particularly the one guy who did the presentation, and I have to agree with them on a few things. One is the traffic pattern that's currently shown in Title 19 is sloppy compared to the diagram that he put together. And the traffic pattern that was put together over 10 years ago was put together by yours truly, and this was at a time when Google Earth wasn't that great, and then my mapping tools weren't that great, and I'm not an engineer, and I don't play one on TV. And so the picture there was not so good. But the other thing I want to emphasize is nobody's talking about changing the overall traffic pattern. It's still going to be left 27, right runway 9er. And the real value that I saw in their presentation is they're trying to educate people so that if you're turning downwind and somebody's announced downwind ahead of you and they're flying a sport aircraft plane, you should be looking not just ahead of you, but to your left and below you, because they're not going to be flying the same pattern. Now, as a pilot, you guys all know, the bigger, faster things tend to take the patterns higher and farther out because you're trying to accommodate the speeds and the amount of time and distance it takes to turn. And so I think that's really, in a simple sense, that's really what they're trying to accomplish. They're trying to get that education point out there. I was a little bit critical of one aspect, because when I looked at the map and it showed airplanes like my Bonanza needs to be 3/4 of a mile from the runway, and a light sport aircraft needs to be a 1/2 mile from the runway. Candidly, if I'm flying, and particularly if I'm not familiar with this airport, there's no way I'm going to be able to tell what's a 1/2 mile and what's 3/4 of a mile. I don't have that kind of distance discrimination, at least not in an airplane. And then you add to that the fact that if you're a little bit higher, a little bit low, everything, of course, changes and looks closer or farther away. And so I mentioned that to him, and he said, "Oh, well, that's maybe that's good observation, because that's not what we were trying to communicate. We weren't trying to say you always have to be 3/4 of a mile, and this light sport has to always be a 1/2 mile. What we're trying to do is say this is where you expect to see them, and let's all get that in our brains, so that when we're flying in here and the state jet is coming in, you expect to see them higher and farther out than the light sport aircraft, which is going to be very close and in." And it's kind of funny, because as he was explaining it to me, I glanced over and I saw Gary Phillips, who had been there, and when he was teaching, he was one of my instructors at one point. He used to be the state pilot. He seems to like really close-in patterns. I mean, it's just a personal preference thing, and I think it's in part a survivability thing. If you have an engine failure and you're close in, you're probably going to be better off. You'll have a better chance of making the runway with your glide. And so even among instructors, there seems to be a different view as to how close or how far you should really be. So I just wanted to share that with you, because a bunch of people got together, and it looks like they had some pretty productive meetings and talk about it. And they seem like a good bunch of people. I mean, some very experienced pilots, and Bill Schrader was involved, who is probably one of the best master instructors in the area. And it looks like this is a great thing. The other thing that was great is having an entire room full of local pilots here. It's really good to see all those people in one place. It's good. It's a really good bunch of people. I mean, that's all I had for my legal counsel briefing.
Thank you, Steve. Treasurer's report.
Let's see, as of August 30, 2015, we started with a balance of $20,965. We had an ending balance of $4,290. We spent $41,661. Total checking and savings, $600,643.
Any questions for our accountant?
Just real quick, that was for October 31st.
He said August. I was wondering about that.
I said August? That was October. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Bosick, any report from your end?
I have none.
Mr. White?
No, sir. No, sir.
Ms. Law? None from me. Any agenda items to be put forward for the next meeting? Actually, we're looking for public comment now, aren't we? I skipped one.
Actually, yeah, you can ask one last time for public comment.
Yes, we are open to public comment if anybody hasn't gotten it off their chest yet. No? Mr. Hartman, let me down. Okay, any agenda items for the next regular meeting that we've overlooked? Hearing none, do I hear a motion on the last item?
So moved.
That is a motion for adjournment. In case anybody doesn't know, a second is needed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're out of here.